Everybody, this is Strategic Command, World at War, Total Realism Project, TRP. This is an introduction to a match that I am playing of Lothos. That's me versus Machiafish. I am playing the Allies. He is playing the Axis. In that game, we are playing TRP version 0.8.14a. So I just wanted to do a quick introduction to kind of go over things in our game and let everybody know that around June 15th, I'm going to start putting up the episodes so that everybody can see. Today I will release one episode, the very first one, so you can kind of look to see or get expectations on what is going to be covered. I'll go over a lot of strategies, in-game mechanics, and things of what to do going back and forth so you people can understand the mod and how it works. As some of you already know, because you're in Discord channel, the main focus of the mod is to make a more immerse and more heavy thinking and strategy type game. I really like the Strategic Command game engine. It's actually, it's simple, but it provides a lot of flexibility and creates almost like a board game atmosphere on a computer. Their editor, the developers created, is fantastic for modding. So it's not just limited to war games. You can create literally anything you want, not just World War. So with all of that said, I'm going to go over some things here. One thing you'll notice is the screen that I'm sharing right now is actually a new version of TRP that I'm working on that will be released sometime around mid-June is when I expect. So like these things, these tooltips here for the synthetic oil plants are not currently present on the version. So you're going to be like, hey, Lothos, you know, I'm playing version 14. I don't see those. Why do I see them on your screen? Well, that's because I've been adding stuff in. Players provide feedback saying, oh, you know, I bombed the hex and I didn't know what it was. So why is that 0 already? So I'm trying to add tooltips and areas to help players understand what is going on and as to why. So, you know, and I appreciate anybody giving me feedback if they see something that I may have missed and it could use a tooltip to just kind of let me know what is that thing, and you know, I'll try my best to figure out a way to do it. But anyways, going back, so in our game, you're going to see me covering a lot of things like Poland, on how to make Poland surrender, strategies in China, and how to survive, and what to do here as both the Japanese and as the Chinese player. I'll go over things like weather patterns that are happening each side. We'll also cover some things on how to play the United Kingdom in the earlier years, talking about things like patience, of which a lot of players don't have. They want everything now. So, you know, the Allied player always wants to have Tunisian oil in North Africa by end of 1940, when the Allies historically didn't do it until almost the end of 1942. So, you know, I'll go over strategies. We'll go over things for the United Kingdom to start doing in the middle area. I mention a lot of the United Kingdom because they are actually, in my opinion, the hardest, but also the most fun to play over any other country. A lot of players think, well, oh my God, the Axis, Germany is the greatest. Everybody likes to attack. But the best players learn how to play defense, how to manipulate, you can call it, your opponent into doing things. And you'll see me doing a lot of that, especially in China. You'll hear me say things like bluffing an attack. So I'm going to move units into hexes that are defensively better for me, so that if I'm making a mistake on this fake attack, I won't suffer too many casualties, but it will put him in a position where he has to shift some stuff around and take pressure in different areas. And I'm constantly doing these. I call it, you'll hear me in the videos, called the Battle of Maneuvers, because that's really what it is. It happens a lot in China. You'll see things like that happening in Ethiopia area. We have a lot of action going on in there. You'll see things like that in North Africa area. And later on in the videos, which we haven't, as the time of this recording, we haven't actually reached Barbarossa yet. We're getting close to that. You'll see that happen a lot in Barbarossa, in large scale. And like I said, in a call battle of maneuvers. Some players, they just get so focused on doing one thing and then just kind of attack. And the game engine itself did have a lot of issues, the base game anyways, where it favored the attacker over the defender. So I've been doing things to change that, because the defender should really have the advantage, assuming the defender is playing a wise defensive posture. For example, a recent change that is in version 14, which we're playing, was changing the fighter ranges from 5 down to a 2 on their base starting. Because you would see, or I would see players take fighters, like the UK player, he'd station fighters up here, then hold the shift key down, and then do a fake strike on the bottom part of London, forcing the German fighters to intercept and attack them. And players would then justify it to them, saying, well, I am doing an air reconnaissance. Well, no, you're not. The game engine has no such thing as a recon. Let me be clear. And I've mentioned this in Discord. The game engine has intercept, escorts, and strikes. There is no such thing as a recon. So when you send out your maritime bomber, for example, out to go look, flying across the ocean to go look at an area, that is not a recon. You are striking an empty hex. So to you, you think in your brain, you're looking at it as a recon. The game engine looks at it as a strike. So let's go back to fighters. One of the things that I'm trying to do is to remove the plan that people have where the attacker always wants to put all their planes in the front, and the very first thing they do is they look for all the enemy planes and then bomb and attack them, so that there's literally no defender air force left. So in version 14 and in 13, which some people are playing still, I started increasing, for example, natural defenses for planes and terrain and stuff, so that strafing runs are not as beneficial. I also fixed it so that bombers now, as long as your tech is even, it's very difficult to, unless you really, really focus everything, to destroy planes and bombers on the ground. And then fighters can't really attack other planes that are really far away. So conceptually, this is how it works with fighters now. You get that 5 range around you where you can see, that is your recon. So if you want to conceptually say, well, I'm doing a reconnaissance so that I can engage enemy planes, that 5 hex is your recon. You have intercept and escort, and your strike range is now 2. And the reason for your strike range being 2 is fighters aren't designed, they're designed for fighting. They're not designed for bombs. So I kind of stole an idea from a board game that I used to play, where it's called World in Flames, and where in that game, when you fly your fighters as bombers, their range is cut in half. So conceptually, think of it that way. So your fighters, when you are going to target a hex now, it's considered an actual strike, not a recon. It's what the game engine intended. It's a strike. So when you're doing a strike, you are carrying bombs. Your range is halved. So you can, in theory, still sort of do it by basically striking within 2 hexes. And then if the fighters are in range, you can still do that conceptually, but you can no longer really reach across and then aerial bombard. So I'm mentioning this because I want people to understand where I'm going with the game engine and as to the reasons why. And it's to get people to think. It's not point and click, which is kind of the base game, because it's so fast paced. I get why it's a point and click, literally. You can play literally the entire war in one day. I've done it. I've literally played 10 hours in one day, and I can finish the entire world war from beginning to end in just one single day. Whereas in TRP, that is not physically impossible. Even against the AI, you cannot do it. So I'm trying to get it to where combinations exist. It requires people to think. Different units do different things. You'll hear me say things like combined arms. If you're in the Discord channel, you'll see quite a lot combined arms and other players talking about it, because there's different combinations of units to achieve certain things. Like, give an example, when I changed artillery, that I no longer is D in trenches. I was in the army, and I was in artillery. Artillery doesn't really de-entrench. We do have the ability to what they call delay the fuse, so it can try to bury itself in the ground and then explode. There is a limit on how deep it can go, and there's a limit on how much damage it can do. But we don't really de-entrench per se. So if you have an entire core that's dug in, artillery isn't going to undig them. What artillery does, and they call it the king of battle for a reason, is it does a lot of damage to units in the open. So I changed conceptually in strategic command so that now, if your units are not entrenched, artillery is going to annihilate them. I mean, if you walk into an artillery unit within range, you better be prepared to take some serious damage. So artillery is very serious. Not rocket artillery, it's a different style, but basic artillery. So I've made these kind of changes to provide units different abilities to do different things. So I've heard, for example, players say, well, I can't de-entrench, I can't launch attacks now, which is not conceptually true. So I'll give you an example of a previous game that I had with Machiafish and I, where we got into the, I guess, middle to end of 43. We had to stop that game because there was a tactical bomber bug. It was my fault, not a game engine issue, where I did the calculations wrong. And on the later game, the morale damage that was being done by tactical bombers was so intense that if the Germans, or basically the Germans, built every tactical bomber that they could, and then focused them all in one area, you can wipe out and annihilate anything in front of you. And at one point, my opponent, Machiafish, we were playing, I think he was having fun because it was literally like a point and click. Anytime point and click, point and click is only fun for the person that's doing the pointing and clicking. The person receiving the pointing and clicking is not having fun. So let's just be clear. The goal is for both parties to have fun and for both parties to require thinking. So he was literally destroying over 1,000 MPP per turn in Russia. His best turn ever with the tactical bombers, he destroyed 1,900 MPP worth of units. So I went from having a strong Russian army and launching a counteroffensive to him wiping everything out in just a matter of months. And there was literally, I had just some infantry left. He was going to run up the whole line. So I told him, even though Italy had surrendered and I was going up the coast, I told him, it's like, hey, look, we need to end this. Could I have won it? Yeah, but at that point, that bug was so apparent that it was just, in my mind, it was just destroying the game. So anyways, going back, I'm mentioning that particular scenario because I was able to launch a Russian offensive during the winter without using any planes at all. And that's one of the strategies that I go over with the Russians is you don't really you have all of these planes. I don't recommend using them for the first 2 years of the war. You keep them behind your lines in a safe place. So the way I launched that offensive is I pre-planned when I wanted. I planned all my builds, pre-planned everything to come in on a certain date. And then I shifted my artillery around, shifted some rocket artillery around, shifted some units, infantry units around, preparing for this. And then I kept a whole bunch of units in my build queue in this section here. and I didn't place them on the map until about 2 or 3 turns prior to me going to launch the offensive. So when I was ready for when I launched the offensive, it was in the winter, bad weather, so we had snow and rain. So his fighters could not scout out and see what I had behind the lines, which I timed everything perfectly. He had no idea this offensive. So before the weather, even though it was the snow, ice on the ground, it was clear. His fighters were saying, hey, it's all clear. Russians don't have much. We're fighting in the Caucasus, but the area around Rostov is safe. You don't have to worry about it. So he was like, all felt safe. He couldn't get to Stalingrad, so Rostov was his main key point for supply. And he's just driving down the Caucasus, trying to stretch the lines out and see if he can get some extra resources. Well, the weather kicked in. I dropped everything in there, and I went from basically just having a thin line to having a front line that was almost 4 to 5 layers deep in Russian units. The opening volley, rocket artillery. I picked 2 points, and the 2 points were not next to each other. So think of it as a straight line. Pretend this German unit was a French unit. I'm sorry, this is a German unit. Pretend these French units were German units too. The rocket artillery was positioned in a spot like here, and I targeted 1 unit here and then 1 unit here. Think of it that way. And it was on a slight curve, so I can get 2 core on each hex. And one of the hexes actually had 3 core on 3 different angles. So I opened up 1 attack on each. And the reason why I started with the rocket artillery is because it got on the level 1, I think it's 25% morale damage, which is guaranteed. Doesn't matter what your entrenchment is, you're going to get the morale damage. With that morale damage, it made it easier. So I call them suicide infantry, because the Russians have a lot of suicide infantry, don't take as much damage. So it went from like a 5-1 or 5-2 attack where I'm going to take 5 damage, he's going to take 1 or 2, to with the morale damage, then it went down to like a 3-2. So then I did my suicide runs, took the de-entrenchment down. This is all in the same turn, by the way. It's not like this is over multiple turns. This all happened on the same turn. So I took the de-entrenchments down I picked 2 hexes that were in clear fields, so the entrenchment was 2. So now they're at entrenchment of 0. I then moved the infantry back. I had 1 artillery in each area that was within 2 range, and the artillery were fully loaded. So one of the things on artillery is you can right click, and there's a command in there to basically kind of do the equivalent on a fighter, which is to ground. You can tell your artillery not to fire, which is what I did. So even if you was the previous turns to attack the hexes, my artillery was not going to do defensive fire. I've been holding it back. So as soon as I broke that entrenchment, I then opened volleys with the artillery unit. And artillery, they do get affected by weather, but they're still going to do a lot of damage when they're level 1s. And I got 2 shots on. So they went from the first volley, so they were at strength 10. After the suicide infantry, they were about a strength 8. Then 2 volleys of artillery knocked them down from 8 to like a 3. And then they no longer provided zone of control, and I broke armor up immediately because I had armor just behind it. Remember, I created literally 3 or 4 layers of units that just popped out of nowhere, and then wiped out those units and then pushed through the front. And it caught him completely off guard. My mistake was I told him in a message the Russian offensive began, and I wish I hadn't done that, because had I not done that, I would have bought myself some more time from the tactical bomber onslaught, because neither one of us knew the bug of the tactical bombers until he by accident discovered it. And I would have probably gone far, because I advanced a good 3 or 4 hexes. I almost took Rostov, and then out of desperation, he focused all his tactical bombers, and it was just like point and click, point and click, point and click. Anyways, up to that point, it was fun. It was fun to see the combinations, and I mentioned this kind of stuff so that people realize, and then go, I can't break the front lines. This is World War I entrenchment. Why did you get rid of all of these things from the base game and everything? And that's not true. That's not true. Once you learn the units and learn the different combinations and how unique some of these units are, you'll start realizing that you can do these things. But anyways, with all that said, I hope you enjoy the videos. I think you will find them very educational, not just entertaining, but educational. I go over a lot of stuff on not only just TRP, but strategic command, the game engine, and how it works. The intricacies that I've discovered, because I think I've dug into this game engine probably more so than um, I've not more so than I think any other player ever has. I have a lot of discussions with the devs. Um, is it possible that other players have? Yeah, there's nothing guaranteed except death and taxes. But from what I can see and what I'm reading on the forums and everything, I think I've dug in quite deep into it. And I did the same thing when I was modding Hearts of Iron 1, 2, and 3. I did not go into Hearts of Iron 4. Hearts of Iron requires, I think, a lot more time than I'm used to. I'm no longer in my 30s. You can say I'm semi-retired from modding, and modding this game engine is a lot easier than doing Hearts of Iron, and you get the fruits and see the benefits a lot quicker. And I think it's just mainly because of their editor. So their editor is what brought me back into modding, because I honestly would not have done it if it wasn't for editor. So thank you to the devs at Fury Software for creating this, and thank you for bringing me out of my retirement to once again enjoy modding. And I hope I can make your game engine into something better and bring it into, I call it, a second or third life. And maybe even get you some new sales and people buying it, so that you can create a new iteration of your engine. Anyways, enjoy, watch, learn, and I will read the comments. And if you got questions, please shoot them into the comments section. I will love to read through and go over them. And join our Discord channel. I'm in there quite often, actually most of the time, because I work on the internet, so my job allows me flexibility to see these kind of things, because I'm literally online 24/7. Anyways, enjoy, have fun.